Welcome back, JC Peeps. We're sitting here today with Katie Matheson. She's the communications director for Alliance for a Better Utah, so watchdog group down at the Hill, doing their best to keep the citizens of Utah informed. Katie,
our best.
I liked the round of applause you were giving it. You're like, yay!
I applauded myself.
Yes. Well, should we clap? Do we want to put that?
Yeah, please.
We'll put
Yes.
we'll get like a laugh track or something.
No, don't do a laugh track after we've been announced.
Like, oh, them. You know, one thing I really hate is that the Salt Lake Tribune always says that whenever they talk about you guys, they're always like, the left-leaning Alliance for Better Utah. Like, they don't say that about the Sutherland Institute. They don't say that about, Eagle Forum. The right-leaning blah, blah, blah. They don't say that.
Sometimes they'll call the Sutherland Institute conservative. And I've seen them do that, but there was a letter to the editor about this very thing.
Yeah, because they always say left-leaning.
And Robert Gehrke, so Chase tweeted about that letter to the editor. Mm-hmm. Robert Gehrke came after Chase, and he was like, that's not true. And I went and found the most recent coverage of our organization and Eagle Forum, and it was like, that's exactly what it was in that story. It was Eagle Forum was just Eagle Forum, and we were left-leaning.
It's always left-leaning.
Circled it.
Yeah, like, there you go, Robert Gehrke. As much as I like you.
Well, I think that was an editorial choice that I think has been adjusted because since then they've clarified that Sutherland is right.
Good.
Or conservative.
But we're here to talk about week 3 of the legislative sessions going on right now. We're how many days away? Do you know? How many days until?
I do not.
It's probably around 30 now, right?
Yeah,
maybe
less.
Maybe less, like 25.
Maybe.
But until the session's over, man, that's so crazy.
It is wild. But we have a few bills here that we're going to talk about to kind of keep folks updated on what's going on, and then we also have some updates for bills that we've talked about in the past. So we have some new ones. Let's dive into the first one. I have on my list HB 70. This is Patrice Arendt's repeal of single mark straight ticket voting. Mm-hmm. This bill gets run every year, and it looks like this might be the year.
Yeah.
This is the year? What?
It was so close last year. It was the final night, and they just didn't get to it last year. So this year, I think, will be the year.
Yeah, so if you're not clear on what this is, so this abolishes straight ticket voting, which allows a person – straight ticket voting is when you go into the voting booth and you vote for one party, and then you just leave. Mm-hmm. My question with that, though, is there are sometimes nonpartisan races like the retainer of judges. Mm-hmm. Do they then, if you go vote straight ticket and then say you left, those just go unfilled? Is that what happens?
I imagine so, yeah. Since they're nonpartisan, so. But
some say this bill helped Ben McAdams get elected in 2018, so Republicans maybe don't love it. But at the same time, it also it's like I would say it's a way that people could just like walk into the booth and say, yeah, I don't really care. I don't have to do research. I'm just going to vote all Republican and leave, right?
Yep.
And if you abolish it, presumably people will do more homework.
Right.
Is that the way you understand it?
In theory.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say if you are saying that any one thing got Ben McAdams elected, then you would be wrong. It was all the things that got Ben McAdams elected. I would say, medical cannabis was helpful as well. Right. And also like the blue wave in response to, Donald Trump was a big part of it, and they had a great field game. So this is a good bill because, yes, it requires people to go in and think thoughtfully about people that they are voting for. The Republicans don't like it anymore. The Republicans liked it when they were doing well as a party. They are not doing well nationally as a party. And so now that they perceive it to be a threat to their political power, they do not want people to be doing straight ticket voting anymore. Like, for example, in the 2nd Congressional District, they just did a poll just on party affiliation or like party favorability. Mm-hmm. And the Republican did not do well. So
the Republican did they name Chris Stewart? Or
no, it was just
generic Republican?
It was just Republican.
Interesting.
So, and there was another poll that just came out from Utah Policy that showed that more people in Utah think that the Democrats care about them than the Republicans think about them.
I shared that on Twitter. Yeah, I was like, ooh.
The scarier part of that, which it has nothing to do with this bill, is of course that it was like 20% thought the Republicans cared more, 22% thought the Democrats cared more, and 44% thought Donald Trump cared more.
Yeah,
so
it's like, wow,
that was the scariest takeaway. But anyway, back to this bill. It's a political thing for Republicans, but it's actually a good thing in general.
Yeah, in general, right? Mm-hmm. And so looks like this bill passed the House on a 46-26 vote. So now it heads to the Senate. feels like it could probably pass in the Senate. I don't know. Are they more conservative on this issue, or
no? I think it will pass because it's passed in years past.
Great.
So I think it will.
Yeah, I hope it does. And because, like I said, this is a bill that gets run every year, and I think it'd be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing I have on my list, I noticed something in your your daily legislative updates. So once again, folks, if you have not signed up for the daily legislative updates from Alliance for Better Utah, please do that. That's where I pull a lot of this information. They send out these great, I would say, short, succinct summaries of what happens each day, highlighting the most important stuff. And it's a really good way to stay abreast of what's happening, even though you're maybe not on the Hill or you don't have time to listen to committee hearings or anything like that. So I noticed in one of the emails there were requests for appropriations from a particular, it was like an agriculture committee of some sort. And one of those was from Phil Lyman. He wanted some money for the American Lands Council, which is founded by former Representative Ken Ivory, who got some piece of legislation passed, some big contract, then left the legislature and went to work for the company that he got the money for.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Imagine that. So he's got this thing on the side where they have this American Lands Council. It's a right-wing public lands thing. And Phil Lyman is asking for taxpayer money to dump into this nonprofit. And I thought that was really weird. Did that seem really weird to you? Like, is that normal practice?
See, when it comes to appropriations, I don't know. I've asked my team when I saw your outline, I asked my team about this. They haven't gotten back to me. So the short answer is I don't know. The longer answer is never trust when Phil Lyman and Ken Ivory start talking about public lands.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
two of the most egregious people. I mean, maybe the most egregious person above them, Mike Noel, right? Is that his first name?
Yeah. Mike, yeah.
Yeah, just so terrible.
Yeah.
On the public lands issue.
Yeah, exactly. When I was on the Hill the other day, I walked into the cafeteria. That's where we all start our day. And right in front of me was Phil Lyman smiling and taking a picture next to a big map of Recapture Canyon. And I was like, that's hilarious because that's why you are like, you went to jail for this. Yeah. So in terms of appropriations for taxpayer money, funding, stuff like this, I don't know how normal it is. My sense is that it's fairly normal. And yeah, I mean, they have got like this federalism project where they take taxpayer money to like teach legislators about federalism. So it was just like super conservative ideology.
Yeah. But hey, the public schools, it's just all left-wing BS. Higher education, they're all getting indoctrinated. You're playing the same game, Republicans. All right. There was another one that I'll just mention briefly. So Representative Snow also was trying to get money for the Rural Policy and Public Lands Institute. This is a little bit different because this was like a state entity, but it felt, once again, like politically motivated. And somehow USU and Dixie State were going to sign up and do some research or something. I don't know. Once again, politically motivated. It seems like they got an agenda. The next thing I wanted to talk about, the celebration of the first white woman to vote at the Capitol was this last week. It was on Valentine's Day, Friday the 14th. So if you don't know the story, Sarah Young, she was the daughter of Mormon Church President Brigham Young. She was the first woman in the country to cast a ballot on February 14th, 1870. Sorry, Wyoming. We know you're the equality state, but we beat you to it.
Heck yeah.
I actually I tagged the Wyoming Young Democrats on this day. I was like, sorry, guys. Just want you to know that. They loved the post, so I appreciated that.
Nice.
That they weren't like pissed off. So the nation will also celebrate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, granting suffrage to white women this year. So that'll be a big thing. We'll be talking about that in March, but I wanted to highlight that. Were you a part of any of that celebration on Friday?
No, I walked around and I saw all the cool hats and that was great. And, I mean, we're very excited for it, but, it's difficult in a year when we're still trying to battle over whether or not the ERA is a good thing and whether or not women should have bodily autonomy. It's just like, congratulations on letting women vote so that you could have more votes, polygamist men, but also like you can't. There's this thing that Utah does sometimes where it wants to pretend like it's leading on an issue when in reality, there's an opportunity for them to lead right now in this very moment and they don't, and we don't, and it's such a shame because we really could. We have the ability to do so, but if I have to listen to Mike Lee get up there and talk one more time about how women are so great, but or like Spencer Cox, for example, if I may rant for just a hot second.
Oh, yeah. Let's do
Spencer Cox,
Please do.
Women for Utah, which is run by his wife, Abby. And, they go around and they're trying to get women registered to vote. And they're trying to be the women-friendly women-friendly candidate and all this kind of stuff. And I'm sitting here screaming at my wall, like 17% of gubernatorial candidates are women. And 50% of the population in Utah is women. But let's keep talking about how we're so excited that women are allowed in the ballot box now. So that's my rant.
No, it's totally legit. And, he had some questionable things to say about women's issues in particular, right, that had got him in some hot water. So he's trying to walk this weird line.
Cox?
Yeah.
What was it that he said?
Didn't he compare abortion to slavery?
Okay. White people, stop comparing anything to slavery.
Yeah, because it happened again last
Stop
week.
comparing anything to slavery.
Yeah, it's just terrible. Okay, so that happened last week. Awesome, but don't be a hypocrite. So I had a couple of bill updates, and maybe if you wanted to throw in some comments on these. So SB 69, this was the teacher supplies tax credit, Jake Anderegg, right? Has been circled on the second reading. I wanted to explain maybe what that meant, because I'm not actually sure what it means.
So when a bill is circled, it just means that they're going to pause it for a second, and it's not going to lose its place in the calendar. So Jake Anderegg, when you put this on here, I went back and listened, and Jake Anderegg is the one who requested that it be circled because he's got a substitute coming. So I don't know what the substitute says.
Right.
But basically, once it's he'll make a motion to uncircle. It'll be uncircled, and then he can put in the substitute, and then it will go from there.
Okay. So it's just a pause.
Yes.
We don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
But that's on the floor of the House right now, and then
Senate.
It's on this. Oh yeah, because he's a senator,
Right.
Senator Jake Anderegg. So it's on the Senate, and then if it passes, we'll kick it down to the House, and we'll see how it goes down there. Also, another Jake Anderegg bill, SB 92. This is the comprehensive rail plan. This passed the Senate on the second reading. So now on to the House. I mean, what do you think?
The Senate hears it twice.
Okay.
So it goes to the third reading in
third
the Senate.
reading is when it actually passes out.
Right. So it will go back. It'll probably be heard on Tuesday, and then it'll go to the House.
Okay. So it's got one more reading, one more vote, and if it passes that third reading,
that's right.
Then we'll really find out what's up. And then SB 67, the fetal remains bill. I know you've been watching closely. This passed the Senate on Tuesday last week. What do we do now?
Contact
this is
your
a bad bill.
representative.
Yeah, it's a bad bill.
So we're probably going to have a hard time in the House too, but contact your rep in the House and tell them not to vote for it.
Okay. So that is what you can do, JC Peeps. The next one was this really weird thing that happened. So there were politics that went on at the Hill. Surprise, surprise.
What?
So after Mitt Romney decided to vote to convict President Donald Trump, your applause track goes in there. Yeah.
There
it is. Yeah. There were certain Republicans within the Utah GOP that felt that was wrong and that he should be censured, and so they opened up some. I think they were just resolutions, right? They were going to open up these, and so they went and had one of those famed closed-door caucus meetings that you all have a great video from 2016 that I watched on. I'll include that in the show notes if you want to watch that video because it's pretty hilarious. And when they came out, they decided there will be none of those votes, or there will be none of those resolutions censuring Senator Romney, but we will pass a citation praising Donald Trump for being such a great guy. And
well, they were also gonna. I think it was gonna be also a resolution praising Trump, and then they went to a citation, because on a citation, which by the way, no one on the Hill knew what it was. Nobody in the press knew what it was, and so everyone learned about it just as this happened. But with a resolution, you have to vote and debate it on the floor. So they wanted to save because this is from leadership, so they wanted to save their members the embarrassment of having to vote or discuss this, and vote on or discuss this. So they changed it to a citation, and I don't think it's happened yet. Has it? I haven't seen anything about it.
I haven't either. And like you said, the citation thing is weird. I have not seen this before. And so, interesting. But I wrote in the notes, it seems the Republicans and America are in an abusive relationship and afraid of drawing our mercurial president's ire.
Yep.
Like,
that's accurate.
They're just trying to
they're afraid of a bully.
Yeah, they're afraid of a bully.
Yep.
And that's wow, because that's the head of their party. Amazing.
That is totally embarrassing.
Man, it's something else. Okay, we're going to move on to HB 17. This is an interesting one about congressional vacancies. So this is from a guy named Representative Merrill Nelson. He's a Republican. So this bill would change the process of filling congressional vacancies from political parties doing it. So say, for some reason, Ben McAdams gets appointed to be the next Attorney General.
Do like Mike Lee.
Okay.
Because it's for senators, not for representatives.
Okay, yeah. So if Mike Lee gets put on the Supreme Court, I know. Swallow it. Sorry. Then normally the Republican Party, the Utah GOP Central Committee for the state, then fills that vacancy with somebody from their party.
Yeah, they get to put forward 3 candidates, and then the governor picks one.
Okay.
But this changes it to the legislature puts forward 3 candidates, and then the governor picks.
Yeah, and so I put, sorry, 17th Amendment. You don't. Yeah, people they're trying to, they're salivating over here trying to get rid of that. I think that's what your executive director tweeted. Like, they are salivating to, take this power back to the legislature.
They always want
picking the senators
to pull. The legislature is in the business of hoarding power for itself. Mm-hmm. That's why they passed that bill last year to be able to call themselves into session. Mm-hmm. This bill, initially, my thought had been that it would be a way to gerrymander a Senate seat by, like, say, Mike Lee, or rather, say 40 years in the future, we have a Democratic senator, but they still, the legislature still has control. The Republicans in the legislature still have control over the legislature.
Because of gerrymandering.
Because of gerrymandering. Then they could put forward 3 Republican candidates that the governor would have to choose from, but that's not the case in this bill. In fact, it requires in there that they pick from the political party that the senator is from.
Okay.
So that's actually not a problem. So if, a Democrat wins that seat in 9 years or whatever it is, then the Republican legislature will have to pick 3 Democratic candidates for the governor to pick.
Okay.
They could pick really crappy Democratic candidates.
Right,
yeah.
But there are certain people that they are not going to want as the opposing party.
Yeah.
But
so this one leaves me with actually more questions than answers, because they are always in the business of hoarding power for themselves, but I'm not clear what problem they are solving with this bill. I'm not sure why they're changing this, and I'm a little bit confused as to why the Keep My Voice people aren't more freaked out by this, because they're not saying anything about it, and this would take power away from the Republican caucuses and the Republican Party.
That's their big thing.
Right. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the deal is with this bill. So
if you don't know, the Keep My Voice folks are the ones, it's a faction of super right Republicans, of which the former GOP chair here in Weber County is one of those folks, Linda Pipkin. And their whole thing is against SB 54, which allows people to gather signatures to get on the primary ballot. They don't want that. They only want you to go through the convention to get the nomination so that they can control the process. And I think you're right. Like, if they're so concerned about, controlling, people nominations or whatever, people going through the party process, where are they at on this? Mm-hmm. Because that seems to be their hobby horse, and they're silent.
Yeah, I just want to quickly, this is my weekly reminder that the Utah GOP has an illegal bylaw on their books, and the office of the lieutenant governor refuses to do anything about it.
Yeah, so SB 54 is the law of the land. It's been litigated. So they have to allow people to gather signatures to get on the ballot. Mm-hmm. But they changed the bylaws in the Central Committee to do away with that. So they are in violation of state law.
So Spencer Cox right now is in violation of his party's bylaw.
Yeah. Which he's supposed to be enforcing, of the state law, because he's the elections guy, right?
Right. He's not supposed to be enforcing his party's bylaw. He's supposed to be enforcing state law. So he is in keeping with state law. He is in violation of the Republican Party's bylaw.
But he's also not doing anything to decertify his party,
right?
Because they're in violation of state law. Mm-hmm. So that's a thing. So I put this bill passed the House, has been given a favorable recommendation by the Senate. Mm-hmm. It's probably going to pass. Mm-hmm. I mean, I hope it doesn't pass. It's probably going to pass.
Yes.
So that sucks. Next, we have HB 116. This is an interesting bill. This is from Representative Angela Romero. She's a Democrat from Rose Park. Is it the area? Or is it a little bit further south?
I don't remember.
Anyway, she's a Democrat from Salt Lake County. This bill would create a legislative task force to research and make recommendations on how to combat the serious issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Utah.
And LGBTQ.
Right, and the LGBTQ plus community. So this, I was surprised, it passed 8-1 vote in the House Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Committee.
Yeah.
Pretty resounding.
Yeah.
And it's just waiting on the third reading in the House to get a vote.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the task force piece. So if I understand this, it creates a task force to look into an issue and then create a report.
Yeah, make recommendations.
And then make recommendations to the state on what they should do to mitigate this issue.
Yeah. And I will say, so at the committee hearing, I was there, and a number of people, I don't think anybody spoke against it. And one of the...
How could you be against this, you know? I guess one person voted against it, so...
Oh, and that was, I think it was Rep Strong. I think that's who did it. And I'm not shitting you. Can we curse on this podcast?
Yes,
okay.
Certainly
I'm not shitting you. He goes, so he gets the mic and he says, okay, you know, he does this whole like preamble, and then he says, but what about the men? And then
that's right. Yeah, I remember you. Somebody said that in the weekly update. It was like, but what about men? And it was like, is this guy for real right now?
Yeah.
Did he really say that?
Yes.
It's wild, man.
What the fuck?
It's like that. Did you see that? I think it was a Washington Post article today about BYU and about how they had a Black History Month thing, and some kid. It's anonymous questions. So
I saw that on Twitter when that happened.
What about White History Month? I was like, are you freaking kidding me with that, man?
I saw that when that happened. Oh.
What I always say is like, oh, you want White History Month? It's the rest of the year. Sit down.
Yep.
Like, it's so stupid, man. So stupid.
Anyway, yeah. So he voted against it, and he said, "What about the men?" So yeah. So there was a somebody there from the sheriff's office, Utah sheriff something. It was like a group of law enforcement, and they spoke in favor of it.
That's
so
right.
They want it as well.
That's
so
awesome.
This is a good thing. I mean, if you look at the stats on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and LGBTQ, it is astounding. Like, I was sitting there, I knew these in the back of my head, but I was just sitting there in the committee hearing, listening to people talk about it, and I was floored. Like, absolutely floored. One of the women who got up and spoke, she said every single Indigenous family has a story in their family about a woman or a girl or a two-spirit who has been the victim of violence.
Yeah.
Every single family. It's absurd. So I'm really glad Representative Romero is taking this on.
Yeah, that's great. So we'll see this week if it gets a third reading in the House, and we'll see if it passes the vote, and then it's off to the Senate. Couple more bills, and we'll wrap this up. SB 102. This was a hot one on Twitter, and with mixed reviews on it. So this is SB 102, bigamy amendments. This is from Senator Deidre Henderson, who has been very anti the ERA in the past. But in this one, this bill would decriminalize polygamy in Utah, making violations only a misdemeanor. This one was tough. I felt like there were good arguments on both sides, like, well, we should not do this, but then there were also people saying, like, no, if you do this, it can create a situation that's worse because there's no strong penalty anymore.
Right.
I don't know. Like, did you have any sense of this? Like, what are the pros and cons of this bill moving forward?
So the way that we've been looking at it is that this is what criminal justice reform looks like in Utah. Because what's happening right now, so the problem that is being fixed is that we all know that there are polygamous relationships that can be entered into with consensual adults. There are also a lot of polygamous relationships that are that are basically like sex trafficking, right? And there are a lot of women and children who are abused in polygamous relationships. Yeah. And that is a Utah and like Western states specific thing. And when abuse happens in these relationships, and there's the bigger issue of your life, the way that you are living is breaking a law and you're worried about going to the police, then you are less likely to report to the police the abuse.
I see.
And so we do this in other areas where it's almost counterintuitive, where you're like, oh no, this is a problem. We need to be going after these criminals with the full, strength of the law, when in fact it has a chilling effect on people who would otherwise report
forward.
Right. And so what happens is
to highlight a bigger issue that's happening in the relationship.
Right. So my understanding, not being an expert on this bill, is that if we do this, if this passes, then the abuse itself will still, and it's not making polygamy legal.
Right.
It's just lowering. Right. But what happens is, if I am in a polygamous relationship and I and my children are being abused, I am more likely to go to the police to report that abuse than I would be now. So, and this is the effort of a lot of really, I think, thoughtful work on the part of Senator Deidre Henderson. And I know that it's really difficult for people. I've heard a lot of people on the left who are not fans of this bill.
Yeah, certainly.
Because there's abuse that happens.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to be willing, if we say that we're about looking at something systemically and holistically, and we are able, this is not necessarily a novel concept. It just feels really close, I think, to home for a lot of people, which is why it's a difficult bill to address.
Okay. So the bill is currently on the second reading in the Senate, so it's got to get a vote, and then it'll have to get read again and get another vote, and then we'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Last but not least, HB 264. This is the Infinite Work Pilot Program. I thought this was great.
Yeah.
Stephanie Pitcher, she's a representative Democrat from Salt Lake County.
Mm-hmm.
This bill would allow employees at the State Department of Health to bring infants to work as a test case for all state employees. So this is a pro-family bill. I like it, but I also thought, okay, this is a good step, but also, what if we just had real paid maternity and paternity leave?
I think that'd be great.
So you don't need some pilot program with the state. It's no, they can just stay home and live a good life and then come back to work, after 3 months or 6 months or a year or whatever they need.
If we could go to a year, that would be ideal. Right now, what we're dealing with is you get 6 weeks unpaid leave in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's maternity.
Maternity. Yeah. Forget. People are
if you're a dad, sorry, man.
Parent. But Representative Waite is her bill will hopefully fix that, at least for state employees. But right now it's 6 weeks unpaid for women. Mm-hmm. But if you want, and
that's anybody, you could be working in the private sector and you could get that.
Right. Because to do any less would be violating federal law.
Okay.
So
we're at the minimum.
But
we're
go
pro-family.
Utah.
Yeah.
So even if you did 12 weeks, which I think is starting to become more of the norm, 12 weeks paid leave, that's still 3 months, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know if your listeners have had children, but 3 months is still basically like a potato. It's still baby. And I think that this program would go up through when the infant becomes mobile, or a year. So there's still a lot of padding. Even if your office gives you up through 6 months, there's still probably another
6 months,
3 to 6 months where it's that soft in between stage. So I think that this is a good, it certainly doesn't replace not having good family leave, but I think that it's a good bill. When I had my second son, I was really lucky that I was working, the way that my husband and my work schedule worked out was that I was able to actually bring him to work with me just because of the nature of the place that I worked. Mm-hmm. And it was a lifesaver. Being able to take, and it worked, it didn't cause a problem. I was able to he was a wearable baby. So I just strapped him to me and just went and taught my lessons, and it worked out fine. So I like this.
Yeah, I'd say that, for us, when our boy was born in 2013, this is a big reason why we're so deeply in student debt, was because we were still in college then, mm-hmm. and because my wife had our boy, and I couldn't work, and, she was taking care of the boy, so mm-hmm. we basically lived on student loans for, mm-hmm. 2 years mm-hmm. while we went through that process, mm-hmm. and people say, well, that's dumb, you should have gone to work, and it's yeah, but also, my wife got to be with the boy and raising him up, and by the way, our children have amazing reading scores now because of that.
Yeah,
but there's a cost.
Having a workable family unit should not be something that is only available to the wealthy. Working class people should be able to have families.
Yeah.
Don't give me this bullshit about, you know, well, you know, you need to save X number of dollars before you have kids. It's like, like I have X number of years before I can't have kids anymore. Like this is that whole thing is such bullshit.
I agree. So hopefully this is I mean, like I said, at its core, it's a good bill, and it'll probably work out. I would think that. So right now it's on its circled on the third reading in the House. So maybe a substitute coming, if I understand that's what happens with these. Or maybe just
maybe. I mean, I only know that Jake Androig's bill is getting a sub because he said it's getting a sub. Okay. So I don't know why it was circled
right now.
Yeah,
but waiting on third reading in the House. So hopefully going to pass soon.
Yeah, and Rep Pitcher she's a really hard worker, and also she's just really good at what she does. Like she's I mean, everybody's good on the Hill at what they do, but she's new, and she's kind of getting, I think, a reputation for being very effective.
Cool. All right. Like I said, I put that at the end. Last but not least, check out that epic Alliance for a Better Utah video about those notorious Republican closed-door caucus meetings. So I'll put that in the show notes if you want to check it out, or just look up ABU on YouTube, and you can find it. It's pretty hilarious.
Woohoo!
Katie, thanks again for coming on the show to talk to the JC Peeps about what's been going on the Hill. We want to plug our JC Peeps Day on the Hill, which will be Friday, February 28th. We're going to talk about that later in the show, once again in the events section. But we'll be hanging out with you down on the Hill.
Yay!
And, yeah, we're going to do some cool stuff. You told me the other day that Mitt Romney is supposed to give a speech that day.
That's what I've heard.
So that might happen, too. So we're gonna have a packed day up on the Hill, hanging out with the Alliance for a Better Utah folks. So JC Peeps, come hang out with us. Also, like we've said before, please sign up for your emails, the Alliance for a Better Utah emails. The daily legislative updates is where I get all this information, along with, keeping abreast of what happens, because there's a lot more than what we include here. Is there anything else you guys have going on that you want to shout out?
We're hiring a development director if you want to come work with us.
Oh, man, I have those skills, and I would love to work with you guys, but, oh, man.
That's hard work.
Raising money is
hard
not
work.
my love, even though I was trained to do it. Any other things that Alliance for a Better Utah has coming up, or things to shout out?
We're going to do a post-legislative session event. I don't know the date or location yet, but it is happening, so keep your eyes peeled.
Cool. Yeah, we'll shout it out here and let the JC Peeps know. All right, Katie, thanks so much.